Once again, good morning and a warm welcome to all of you. I hope you're keeping well and safe, and we want to begin our program this Friday morning. From wherever you're tuning in from, we want to give you a karibu, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome you to our inaugural webinar titled Parenting During COVID. This is a first of a four-part series that we'll be doing on education planning with Britam. As mentioned earlier, my name is Jerry Jomo, and I'll be your moderator this morning. Now, from 15th of March, when we had our first COVID case, a lot has changed, and more so for parents, because so much around the home has changed. Our children are home. You've now also become teachers in some way. You're still juggling your tasks with regard to your work environment and so many other new dynamics. And for us at Britam, recognizing that you feel pressured even to mimic your teachers in training, and we know that that can be frustrating, have been deliberate around making sure that we equip you to be better, to parent better during this period. Now, the thinking behind this webinar and what we hope to do is we recognize that families are a critical pillar of our society. And therefore, we want to create stimulating and impactful conversations regarding parenting during this COVID season. The other thing we hope to do with this webinar is to stand with you as parents and families during this season, in line with our motto, to be with you every step of the way. The other thing for us is we want to give you parents an opportunity to share, and even in some cases, vent, and also give you a chance to speak about what you're going through with other parents, and also identify and recognize that you're not doing this alone. And we also want to learn on how we can practice positive self-care, whether it's mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, and also sustain our relationships better to make us better parents. So without much further ado, I want to introduce my panelists. I have an exciting team of panelists this morning. And the first panelist is Dr. Stanley Mukolwe. He's the National Director, Family Ministry at Navigators Africa, and the founder of Raising Future Parents, a nonprofit company that seeks to strengthen the nation by rebuilding families. Dr. Mukolwe, please say hello to our guests this morning.
Good morning, guests and parents. And I'm sure there are some among you who are not parents, but aspiring to be parents. It's an honor to be part of this panel. My wife and I have been married 35 years. We've been teaching on the subject of parenting since 1992. We have published several books, and we are looking forward to sharing some nuggets and wisdom of what you can do during this season.
Thank you, Dr. Mukolwe. My second panelist is Ms. Ruth Wangui Muthami. Ms. Muthami is the founder of Mama Africa Centers. She's also a mentor, a facilitator, and an early years educator. Ms. Muthami, please say good morning to our audience this morning.
Thank you very much, Jerry. Good morning, everybody. You're most welcome. We look forward to having a fantastic time listening to each other. And I'm going to speak as from the mother's perspective. I'm a teacher by profession. And so I feel you. And I really pray that we can be able to pick some wisdom from each other as we continue. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Muthami. And to my third panelist, Ms. Marion Mutweri Mwangi. Marion is a marriage and family therapist. She specializes in child and adolescent and couple and family interventions. She's also a lecturer, supervisor, and also a speaker on family mental health. Ms. Mutweri, please say good morning to our audience this morning.
Good morning to everybody. As you have heard, my name is Marion. I am a marriage and family therapist. I am actually at the tail end of finishing my PhD at Park University in marriage and family therapy. I am done with my coursework. I'm actually doing my dissertation. And I am married been married for the last 14 years and been involved a lot with youth and parenting. I'm also, I do therapy. I work with couples, I work with families, and I'm a clinical supervisor for students. I also teach part-time at USIU Africa, and it is lovely to have you here to encourage and to stand with you through this season so that you can be mentally healthy and strong as families. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And to our audience throughout this session, you can watch us on YouTube Live and also join us on Zoom. And throughout this session, we'll request that you type out any questions or comments you have in the comment section, and our panelists will be responding to them as we proceed. To my three panelists, and this across to all of you, you have all mentioned your parents. I am as well. And I'll start with you, Dr. Mukowe. As a parent, how has parenting been for you during this season of COVID-19?
As mentioned, my children are grown and they're actually out of the country, but they're in the hotspot of COVID-19. I've got two children in Texas and one in Ohio. My eldest daughter works as a physical therapist, so she's in constant touch with sick people who are COVID. So she's exposed to at high risk to COVID. So we are constantly in communication, finding out what's going on with her. My son and my younger daughter are in Texas, and if you follow the world news, Texas has become a hotspot for COVID in the recent days, although that's going down. So I'm constantly in touch with the children, even though they're not in my home right now. The fact that they have grown and left home does not keep me away from being concerned about the COVID situation.
Well, thank you for that. And we can relate with that. Of course, as a parent, you're always told from the day they're born, you continue to have concerns over them, even when perhaps they're even much older. We remain children to our parents. Thank you for that. And to you, Ms. Mutweri, how has parenting been like for you during this season?
I can say there has been good times and difficult times for me during this season. And the good times have been the fact that I'm not working during the evenings, because sometimes I teach in the evenings for the evening classes. So I'm just a room away from the children, and that has been a joy for them. Secondly, is I enjoy cooking. By the way, when I am bored and tired, I cook. So we have cooked everything from pizza to donuts to every single thing, and the kids enjoy that. Also, just being present in everyday conflicts that the kids are going through. Oh, I've fallen on my bike. I don't feel so well. So I've had that and been present. Also, co-parenting, also just working with my husband on teaching has been very interesting because then we've had to agree on the timetable and converse more, agree on rules, because they also want to play us, and that has been very, very interesting. But the challenge is that the work also has increased, because teaching online when you can't see students has been difficult, and therefore the need to engage them a bit more. And at USIU Africa, we have been able to teach from the word go since the lockdown. So the work has been increasing. But also I've been emotionally exhausted, because you have all these things going on, and there's a lot of fear, a lot of risks involved. I've had a few of my children, two of them with allergies. So, on and off, getting a flu here, a flu there, and bringing a sense of concern. But also trying to care for myself has been hard because I can't see my friends. It's not natural to exercise, and of course, constant conflict with my domestic manager, because I'm there to see things all the time. That increases the level of conflict with my husband, because we see life differently with the children. So all these have been challenging situations that I'm learning to manage them over and over again.
Interesting. I've been quite a lot of things going on right there, and a lot of us can relate to that. I was saying I did not know I could bake until COVID presented the opportunity. All of a sudden, we no longer buy bread, and I can hear that across so many parents. Excellent. Ruth, How has it been for you parenting during this season?
I'm a mother of two, a 22-year-old and a 14-year-old. For me, the 22-year-old leaves home in the morning to go to work. So I'm left in the house with the 14-year-old who's a teenager. And I have been a stay-home mom for the last 10 years. So for me, I seem to have already had a way of working around from the house. So being in the home for me has not been shocking. When people are told stay home, I already seem to have settled there because I've been working from home. However, being now a mother to this teenager, I'm having to look at seeing her in the house every day. I'm struggling, teenagers, sometimes their mood is up, sometimes it's down. Sometimes she wants to be on the phone for long. So I'm having to learn, how do I stay with her, not get agitated, because I need to be sane during this time for my sake, for the other family members, and for the sake of my extended family members and the community. So I'm finding it's interesting because she's a girl and I'm a lady. So sometimes we get time to have girl talk. My colleague, Mrs. Mutwire, said about cooking, we get to cook. And during that time, we have conversations. Both of us love dancing. So how do we sometimes get the pressure off is put on Zumba lessons on YouTube and we have our dance moments. I've also learned how to just allow her to be her. So sometimes she's away from me into her room, but like a nosy mom would be, always keep on checking so that I'm in control, as also I help her to navigate during this COVID season. So it's an interesting time for me and the rest of the family members as well.
Excellent. I think at times when they're not home, when the teachers have them, perhaps some of these things do not occur to us as much, but now when they're right in front of us, it introduces new dynamics. So I want to move right into our other questions. And I want to start with you, Ruth.
Yes.
Every crisis presents an opportunity. And even in this crisis, I'm sure there are opportunities. What are some of the highlights of parenting or positive family building opportunities that you can see this season avails to us as parents?
There is something that I just want to say. Some of the things that are facts that will remain with us all the time, whether there is crisis or not, is that we are in a family. So I want, if we can bring that in mind, that we're in a family. So whatever happens to Ruth happens to or affects the other member of the family. That's one. Secondly, we are all very unique members of the family. Why? Because we have different temperaments. Our abilities are different and they're very useful. We need to build a strong family from each one of us being who they are. So Ruth has to act her unique way or her unique characters, and Dad has to do the same, and the two children, and depending again on everyone's age. So we take those as very strong things that work for us in a family. And I'm praying that as we think, we don't lose that part of understanding the family and concentrate a lot on the crisis that is happening. Those are some of the things that will not change. So please enjoy the uniqueness of your family. If we can be able to enjoy every child's characteristics and their abilities during this season, that will be very helpful. I also want to say, as we're working around with each other, different families have different way of doing things. So at this time, the way Mr. Kamau's family will respond to this season is not the way Mudami's family will respond. So as you engage with each other and engage with conversations, let's know that our family will act differently despite the season that we're in. Mr. Kamau's, the way they responded is totally different. So I pray that as we enter into this time of parenting, we are going to enjoy, despite the crisis, there is so much that we can enjoy together. And before we move on, I just want to also say we are parenting children. For me, as a teacher, as a trainer, as a mother, one of the things that I encourage people to do is you enter And I need to show you this, a child's world. I have my globe here. Once you enter the child's world, it's going to be very helpful as you navigate during this season. So your conversations, as you think, you're not judging the child from a mind of an adult, you're judging the child from the way they are responding. If they are angry at something, please allow them to be, and then help them to navigate around that from their point of view, not your point of view. And I have found such things have really been helpful for me. Jerry, over to you.
Thank you. I mean, interesting. Enter the child's world. See things from their perspective. And sometimes I think because we are all too busy, sometimes we don't see it. And it is true. As parents, one of the biggest opportunities this season has afforded us is being able to be around them. I'm sure there are things you're observing that you previously were not able to see before. So thank you for that, Ruth. And to you, Marion, what are some of the challenges of parenting or causes of anxiety for parents and even perhaps children during this season?
I think I want to begin by saying parenting without COVID is tough on its own. Now, when we had a pandemic that holds us back at home and holds our lives, then it becomes a greater challenge. But I want to say a few things about parenting and the task that we engage in on parenting first. Parenting is a long-term and foundational experience. It's long-term because you are going to be that child for a long time. Even when they're outside the home, as Dr. Mukolwe has clearly said, you're still parenting and checking on them. And it's foundational because it establishes and helps them to have physical development, emotional development, social development, and also intellectual development. But a lot of us are focused on the intellectual development and transferred the responsibility of social, psychological development and health to the family, to the schools and to the churches or the religious environment. Second is that parenting is inborn, but it's also acquired. We can naturally parent, but we also need to learn. We need to learn the needs of each child at each developmental stage, and to learn each parent, as Ms. Ruth has said, each child, their skills, their abilities. But also parenting is personal and communal. And I think in our generation, we have insisted on making it personal. But right now, we are realizing that parenting is communal. And that is why we are having a problem, because our kids can go to school. Our kids can go to their favorite club. Our kids can go to their religious environment. So opening up space for that communal space, including the grandparent and the extended family, the child needs that. And finally, parenting is a learning and an implementation process. We must apply what we learn. We can't just keep learning and learning and learning and learning. We have to actually stop and apply the things that we are learning. So I hope from today, when you're done with this, you're going to apply. I want to talk about 3 areas that COVID has affected all of us as parents. One is as an individual person, your own health, your own work environment, your own way of operation has been affected as an individual. You are afraid of maybe contracting. What would happen? Would I go to quarantine? Would I discover an underlying issue that I don't know? What is my financial stability? A few of us have lost maybe income or have lost jobs, or the environment and the business is not looking so well. Balancing work and life has been difficult because so much work has come, but also the intake of news. We are receiving so much news, so much things that are coming on, and experiencing information overload, which causes us anxiety. The second level is the parenting level. That parenting level has concerned us because of the health of our children. We are afraid that our kids will contract. We are afraid that our children will not experience all that they need to experience. A lot of you who have candidates are worried of what that looks like in the future. Asked parents, around me, have you told your children of, the fact that they will have to repeat? And a few of our parents haven't told the children because you don't even know how to begin that conversation. Therefore, also the loss of structure. The children have lost the structure of life. Do they sleep at 1 a.m. and wake up at 10 or 11? That structure has totally been lost. what they eat, when they eat, how they eat it, has become a bit of a loss. A lot of boredom, and a lot of us are wondering, what do I do with this boredom? The teenager needs to connect with their friend, and if they can't do it physically, they're on a gadget. Screen time is becoming an issue. Duties and house chores are becoming an issue. Who does what? And why am I doing this? Becomes quite an issue. But also the third level is the couple level, where couples have been put together. And there's a lot of distress around that, because we used to wake up and each of us goes to our own businesses, and we meet other people that give us joy. If we had a conflict we hadn't solved, then we are able to walk out there and enjoy other people's conversation. But right now we are in each other's space. The financial distress is alive in us. The hard conversation of who is buying this, is becoming a bit awkward and quite difficult. And we are seeing an increase of domestic violence. We are seeing an increase of also alcohol abuse and other forms of abuse getting into the family. The uncertainty, the anxiety levels are increasing. A lot of people are talking about constant tiredness and headaches that are not, ending, because we are so overwhelmed. If it was a few months, that would be okay. But it's gone on for a long time now, and we are not even sure how long it will continue. So that uncertainty becomes a big challenge for everybody in the family, and therefore the need to learn ways to cope with this. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Marion. I mean, often I think we tend to focus on one perspective or the other, but it's interesting that this has affected us as individuals. It has also affected us as parents, but also in every other role that we occupy, and we have to be able to pay attention to each of these areas and acknowledge how it has affected us and how we can be able to adapt appropriately. And even as we proceed to our audience, we want to continue requesting you to type your comments or questions in the comment section. Also invite your friends, share, invite other parents who you believe can benefit from the conversations we're having this morning. Excellent insights from our panelists, and we have a lot more going on. And to our next question, with children being at home and with parents having to juggle across many hats, as caregivers, as providers, as teachers, as friends, as playmates, especially for the younger ones, yeah, they want to run around and they want you to be teacher mommy, as I call it, and even as disciplinarians, it can be somewhat overwhelming. Dr. Mukolwe, how can I cope with all of this? And is it genuinely possible to balance it all?
It is possible. I think that a change in attitude is needed on the part of the parents. When we look at what a parent needs to juggle, as you mentioned, the being there for the child, being the caregiver, being the provider, being the playmate, being the disciplinarian, you get to realize that these are the normal things parents ought to be doing. Now, once we realize that this is the normal thing, the new thing that's been introduced is the schooling. So when you realize that 90% of what you are overwhelmed by is actually your responsibility, then we have an attitude change. COVID has given us an opportunity to realize that these things that were actually ours by nature have been delegated to others in the normal world. And we need to realize that we need to take up responsibility. We need to realize that when the world goes crashing, people run back to their families, and we need a new way of coping with it. Now, is it possible to cope? Yes, it is, but we do need help. We need help in being taught how to cope. We need help in raising our children, and there are courses available where you can raise the younger children. There are many courses around the city. We offer some courses, and I would guarantee you some of our participants have been to our courses. We have opportunity to train parents on how to raise their teenagers, and parents dread their kids becoming teenagers. But parents, whether they dread it or not, they will become teenagers. There is the aspect of enjoying family time. You see, children are used to seeing glimpses of parents in the morning and evening, and now they are wondering, oh my goodness, this is my dad. And some of them don't like what they are seeing. And some of the parents don't like their children because their kids are irritable because of the pressure of COVID. So parents realizing this is our responsibility, parents realizing they can delegate tasks, but they must not delegate relationships. Parents realizing that the COVID pressure is revealing the cracks in our character, therefore we need help. Parents realizing that education on parenting is available, therefore we must seek it. And so yes, people can cope, but they need help to be able to cope.
Interesting. I think what's really struck me, Dr. Mukolwe, is we can delegate tasks,
Yes,
but not relationships.
That's true.
And I think often as parents, we're also trying to delegate the task and the relationship as well. And in this particular time, now they're here. And especially when they go into teenagehood, you're hoping somebody else will figure them out. It doesn't have to be me. Thank you for that. To you, Marion, during this season, parents have been affected differently. Some have seen their families grow stronger, closer even, while others have strained, and some homes even broken during this period. Some have lost possibly a spouse, perhaps a child, or have gone through some form of trauma or upset of sorts. In your experience as a marriage and family therapist, what would you say to encourage or even guide parents regarding handling this family situations?
And I want to just say it is tough. It is really tough to be where we are. We've never been here as a country, as families, as individuals, and therefore the need to learn how to cope. But I think the first thing we need to do is to separate issues, because when we look at issues from a holistic perspective, we can be overwhelmed. I think there are three levels of issues we need to separate. One is that we have continuing challenges that were there before COVID, what we call pre-COVID issues and conflicts that have existed in our family levels, unresolved conflicts that have been there over the years between family members, but also conflicts like parent relationships, even as we are beginning to talk about that. But also we have confinement conflict that now have come with COVID, and challenges that have come with COVID. That now includes the losses that we have experienced at this particular time, the raw confusion and expectations, the testing of the quality of friendships that we have as family members has been tested with loss of income. Will you still support each other through that? But also personality and gender differences have been highlighted a lot again and again and again. And the third level of issues is just the compounded issues now. When we mix them all up together, how do we handle them? And it's important for us to separate issues rather than try and solve everything at the same time, because when we do that, we get overwhelmed. And therefore, it's important to say, we've lived with this issue for so long, so let it not separate us right now. Teenagehood is something we will live through beyond COVID. Therefore, it is something we need to keep working on and knowing how to get ourselves in good shape. But my encouragement to us at this particular time through this process of parenting is to realize that this is a global situation. What is going on is not only going on in your house and in your head. It is affecting all of us. And sometimes that looks like an excuse, but it's a good way to look at things from a perspective that I am not the only one in this. And therefore, I can learn what others are doing that is helpful for their own health. Even as you're saying, and Jerry, that there are families that are thriving. What are they doing to make them thrive? Because we are in this together. And though we are different, we can be able to learn good things that are happening. Secondly, is that this is seasonal. COVID will come to pass. It will come to pass as other pandemics have come to pass in the past. And therefore, the question we need to ask ourselves is, where will it leave us? Will it leave us at a place where we look back and say, during this season, my life got worse? My children got, or will we look at it and say, my kids got better? We have a 9-year-old who's turning 10, and he struggled a bit with school, and we had to get help for him. But it is during this season that we realized our lack of affirmation towards him has been what has held him back. And therefore, being present for him and giving him personal attention from where the teacher left, the private teacher left, has been very helpful for him. And he's doing so well. He has improved in so much. So what is it that you look back? I look back and say, I got to know Ethan better. I got to engage with him better during this season. But then we also need to find the expectations that we are overburdening ourselves. I think all of us are trying to assume that the season is the same. But our health PS has told us, if we treat this normal, we will realize that it will actually treat us abnormally. And that is true even for our mental health. If we treat it like we need to be financially where we were, we have targets of the year and all that, we are going to break down. We need to take a break and go back to the drawing board and say, this has happened to us. There are few setbacks. What can we do? But also we need to look for sparkling moments. Not everything is bad in life. Good things come out of bad things. And we need to look for those good things. What is good that has come out? Njeri has known she can bake a few recipes. Hopefully that continues. Marion has known she doesn't need to look out for someone to do pizza for her kids. She can do it for herself. We can connect with Hope, who is 7 years and asking questions like a 13-year-old, that I can connect with her and braid her hair. I do that because now I don't want to expose her to what is going on. So we can look for sparkling moments of joy and moments of laughter, but we can create memorable moments together.
Wow, I love that. Find sparkling moments. And then to my audience, I don't know what your sparkling moments have been. That has been my aha moment. Sparkling moments where you've picked out something and said, this is good, because we can always either major on the minors or minor on the majors, and looking at this is, yes, COVID is here. Yes, this is happening, but it is not happening to us. How we react to it has a significant impact on how well we get through this season. We can get through this season rising, or this season can actually be the end of us. Excellent insights there about taking time to learn your children, each one of them, taking time to identify the different areas you need to understand that you can help them unlock one thing or the other. And I'm sure we are all learning and can continue to build on the knowledge we already had. Ruth, I want to ask, and picking up from what Marion was speaking about, children are different. I mean, you can have 1 or 2 in your house and they're as different as night and day. And that at times can be quite overwhelming when there's so much change. What tips can you share with parents to help in handling, understanding, and parenting their children across all ages, genders, personalities, and also ability?
I think one of the things that we have heard from Marion is how she was clear to say her daughter is from this age turning to the other age. What that means is at a certain age, a 2 to 5 year old cannot behave like a 9 to 10 or to 12-year-old. Each age group has got different characteristics that stand out for them. And so when you're having those children in your home, there is no way you would expect the 2-year-old to be behaving like the 10-year-old. And that's the part I do not want us to lose, and I pray that we don't lose, that every child is handled from where they are at, and you will enjoy that moment. So how will you do that? Build relationships, very critical. That as much as you're working around with the children, you're making sure that you're building relationships with each one of them from wherever they are at. And attitude, one of my colleagues here talked about the attitude. What is your attitude during this moment when you're with your children? Are you encouraging them along the way? Are you affirming them, celebrating each one of them for what they're doing? Now look, we have them in the house. So life skills are things that maybe are not necessarily taught in school, but these, like Dr. Mkolwa said, are moments that you can take responsibility to work on the life skills of the children. Look at the bedroom of the younger one. Go to the room of the teenagers, totally different. So these are the moments that we can take advantage and help them out. When you notice a child has done something about their play toys, especially the younger ones who use toys, when they tidy up, celebrate that moment. When the older girl has come and cooked without being told, or washed dishes, celebrate, affirm her, celebrate that you're watching, you're seeing the good thing that they're doing. However, what Marion has talked about, a certain specific moment, for me, I say every teachable moment. Do not forget that we're in the child's world right now. So every moment, if I can have a conversation from what the child is saying, how will I know how to converse? I want us to make use of our 5 senses during this time when you're with your children. What does that mean? Listening. Please listen. And when you're listening to the child, what are you able to hear? What is going on in their inside, what they are struggling with. They may be speaking to you, but you just hear words, but God is going to help you, I pray, to pick the emotion. This child is frustrated. Then you can be able to help them at that moment. This child is complaining. And some of those things you will see. This one is becoming a bully with the other children. That is already communication enough. So as we keep watching, as you're listening, listen to the language that's going on around your children. I want us to use our eyes too a lot. What do you use them to do? You observe. As you observe, you will see the abilities of the child. You will see this one is loving music more. And so you see, you have something to start working on with that child. This one doesn't want to listen to music, but they are more artistic. They are always either painting, drawing, coloring, asking for something to use their hands to do. Please facilitate. As the parent at this time, you will enjoy the moment with that child. What else will you do? As you pay attention to what is going on with the children, I want you to make use of showing interest. Remember, we have these children, they're also understanding that there's a pandemic. It's already too much for them. They can't handle, they don't have time to go. You know, you've already put them in a space where they cannot have all the freedom. Don't make it worse by locking them in. Yes, they are in the house already, they can't go out. So try and see what activities can you work around in the house. Show interest to say that today I've seen you've been on the phone for too long. What else can you help them to do? Spend time, quality time. This is a moment, yes, it's COVID, it's bad, so to speak, according to us, but for me, it's a perfect moment to spend quality time with your children. Now, imagine we are working from home. I listened to another parent telling me, which is a good thing, you have your own room where you're working. One of the children would not understand, so dad is home and he can't be with me. Don't assume the child is understanding. Please spend quality time with your children. Explain to them that from this time, dad has to be in the office. Sorry, the office is in this house. And explain to them what is going on. Do not just assume they can understand. And as you spend quality time, God allow, if you're able to get out, retreat. Take time to go to the supermarket for the ones who have the supermarket desire. But remind them the rules of keeping distance, washing their hands, and wearing a mask. Those are rules that have been set, we have to follow. This is your moment, parents, to ensure that as you work with your children, you're getting to learn things that you haven't seen that the teacher has been enjoying at school. Don't forget, yes, they are here, they have already read, they have learned. Talk about how can you work together to plan their day. Put time using the every characteristic where you're taking care of their physical, where you're taking time to listen to their emotions, where you're taking time to put things that put them to work mentally. Right now they can be lazy, but ensure you get a few moments to put them to use their mind so that it doesn't sleep. Finally, I want to tell you, this is the moment for you to show value for your child. Love them, show them unconditional love. Jerry talked about, I'm not sure whether it was Jerry or Dr. Marion who said about loving the children. There's some people, sometimes you're not in the mood of feeling to show the love, which is fine. But at this moment, do the best you can to show value, show love. And just like for adults, there's different language of love. Some love flowers, others love to be touched, even the children. Touch, it makes a lot of affirmation. Show them that you accept them. Why is this so important? Because if the 2-year-old successfully goes through that age group, they will transition to the next very well. If you don't take care of every age group properly, then they will struggle in the next one. I think that for me, show value, pay attention without counting the cost. Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you, Ruth. I mean, my notebook is full, and I hope, and I don't know whether for the rest of the participants you have a notebook, but I'm taking down quite a bit of notes because there's some excellent insights here that can really make this journey a lot easier for all of us. For me, I want to go back. I know you've spoken extensively on the child, their differences, and how to make it an easier time. That I need to make it easier for them to know that now my office is in the house. But I want to come back to the parent, and bearing in mind that a lot of us who are listening in this morning, I mean, as a parent, there's so much pressure to have everything looking and seeming perfect. I keep saying, for some reason, for parents, nobody understands and nobody allows us to drop the ball. Is it okay not to be okay? Is it okay not to be okay? Is it okay for me to say I'm not okay today? Today I don't feel like parenting. How do you know that you're not okay? And perhaps I can hear from both Marion and Dr. Mukolwe on this subject.
I'll be very brief on it. You mentioned the pressure that parents are facing. Now, some of that pressure is out of their own unfulfilled expectations. Is it okay not to be okay? Yes, it is. It's okay for parents to feel low because they have lost income. It's okay for parents to feel like their goals will not be achieved because of changes during this COVID season. So it is okay to be okay. The pressure we are going through is something that we struggle with in our country. The pressure to be like the neighbors, the pressure to achieve certain goals by a certain age. The entire world has been reset. And so we need to think afresh about the goals that we had set. We need to huddle together as a family and rethink about the future. Whereas it is true that COVID will come to an end, when you think about the Spanish flu that killed 50 million people, it lasted 3 years. It may be very helpful for parents to take a long-term view to this break and not to sit there and wait for things to get better, but to assume for a moment that it will be this way for a long time and plan to have a normal life during the stressful season. Normal will have to change from what it has been, but to plan to be resilient during this crisis period if perchance it becomes prolonged. Otherwise, we set ourselves up for more distress when January comes and God forbid schools don't open, then we begin a new cycle of stress. But if we set ourselves up to say we are in homeschooling for the long haul, then when schools do open, becomes a breath of fresh air. Parents do need to inform their children about changes that they all may have to go through for a while. If house help is away, for example, and you're afraid to get her back because of introducing COVID, children need to learn that they will take up their responsibilities in the homes, and let them know that in the developed world, that's exactly what happens. People huddle around each other, work on the chores together, and life moves forward. Over to you, Marian.
Thank you, Dr. Terry. in addition to that, I think the pressure, as he's saying, is social. To be like the Kimanis, to be like, whoever it is. And then the second thing is personal pressures. We all have timelines for ourselves over what we should have achieved by what time, but also the parental pressure. A lot of us want to parent our children and give them what we never had, a pressure that you have created for yourself, that in my home, we will not eat githeri, who said githeri is bad, being at that place of helping a child. I keep saying you need to raise a child who can live with anyone and anywhere. Because if COVID looks like a big jungle, this is the part of the jungle that is hard for all of us, the parenting part, where we need to learn and teach new skills. Let me say something in what we call the psychology of happiness. The psychology of happiness is a psychology that has become a popular psychology from the 90s, because a lot of psychological perspectives were based on people who are sick. But we are coming to what we call positive psychology and psychology of happiness. And a lot of research has been done to compare what will make you happy. And some interesting insights have been discovered. Studies have been done on people who have won lotteries, or jackpot, won 32 million, and somebody who loses their limb. Do you know in 6 months, their level of happiness measured is the same, and probably the one who won the lottery can be worse emotionally? Why? Because happiness is not based on what we experience, but is a state of the mind. I decide to learn how to cope with my inability and my loss of limbs. And the one who won the jackpot starts a whole life that is different from how he or she lived, that they cannot sustain. And therefore, by the time that money is done, they are worse. Some of them commit suicide. Why? Because they started on a life that they couldn't sustain. And therefore, happiness is not about what we get outside, it's what we get from the inside. Am I finding contentment? Am I being able to say, you know what? Life has challenges, and I want to allow my children to see the challenges of life, because they will experience their own challenges when they are adults. And therefore, teaching them how to solve problems, teaching them how to adjust budgets, how to eat differently, how to dress differently, and how to live differently, because life has challenges. And we need to understand that we have to identify our circles of concern and our circles of influence. And as Steve Covey talks about the 7 habits of highly effective people, he says you need to separate that so that you increase your circle of influence as you reduce your circle of concern. Because your circle of influence is the things you are able to control, the things you are able to do. You're able to control your family environment. You're able to control the structure and routines of your children at a certain level, but you're not able to control how long the pandemic will go, when the schools will reopen, how income will flow as fast as you wanted. If you keep that to be the bigger circle in your life, you will be distressed. You will be distressed and you will be overwhelmed. It is good for us to find contentment in our heart, but also to adjust and to increase our circles of influence.
Wow, thank you for that, Marion and Dr. Mukolwe. Some very hard-hitting truths there. I don't know how you're all surviving out there as parents, but I'm taking in some of this as very hard-hitting truths. Is this pressure I'm putting on myself? Are these standards I've created? Deciding in our house we don't eat githeri, in our house we don't do this and that, and yet it becomes my own setup that creates, some level of anxiety right now that begins to make it that much more difficult to cope during this period. Some interesting aspects, and for some work for us to just generally reevaluate what are those expectations we've placed on ourselves, and are they realistic? Are they adaptable? Are we able to adjust them? Because I like to say there's nobody who does not have a CV that says highly adaptable to change. But here is change. And are we genuinely highly adaptable to change? And following on that, Marion, without losing that train of thought and coming through from the fact that perhaps as parents, we are putting a lot of pressure on ourselves. How can parents manage their own personal anxiety without dumping their stresses on their children or their spouses or even self-bashing?
That's a good question, Jerry, because now we know. So what do we do? I think the first thing is to continually be aware of what is happening within me. It is very, very important to know what's happening within me. How am I feeling? Self-awareness and being in the moment is very, very important for each one of us. That I am in the moment of whatever it is that I'm going through. I'm in the moment of what I am feeling and what I am experiencing. I cannot lose sight of what I am going through. And therefore, it is important for me to be in my moment, to learn personal ways of coping. For example, do I need a break from everybody, a break from the children, so that I can have my personal space to be able to think and reflect. But also accepting that things are hard, accepting that things have changed, accepting that my life is not the same, my goals are not the same, a place of acceptance. For us to be able to accept what we have lost. Is it time? Is it resources? Is it structure? Is it predictability? Accept what you have lost. As you continue to monitor your behavior, your feelings, your thoughts, catch yourself and work on reducing negativity, on reducing destructive thinking and behavior. What am I doing that is destroying me, and how can I retract back? Also ask for help. You know, it's important to be vulnerable to people that care about you, to the family members, even to the children. Sometimes we rob our children the understanding of challenges or even understanding our own emotions. We rob them the opportunity of knowing, because they can see we are not okay. And some of them will come and touch you and even want to pray for you because they can see you're not okay. Being vulnerable, seeking help from extended family members, allowing them to know what you're going through, allowing your spiritual leaders and mental health professionals actually to get in and be able to help you. From a parental level, it is important for us to learn that we need also help and to seek that help. And one big help that we need is to create a routine for our children. We must create structure. Cognitively speaking, a structure provides a sense of security, a sense of predictability, and a sense of continuity. We need to help our children, regardless of their age, to figure out, what time do I wake up? What are the responsibilities I need to have in this house? What are the time I can have at least 2 hours of academic and stimulating activities? For example, if you can't help them move forward, can you help them revise all the work? For those who have candidates in class 8 in Form 4, can they revise from Form 1 work, from grade 1 work, so that they are perfecting and giving them an opportunity for them to just go back. Allow them to have some physical activities, to stretch around, to play around, but also allow them to create personal time. Sleep is a big thing, and because we have children who are growing, they need at least 8 to 10 hours of sleep every night. And by the way, not just the children, even you as an individual, you need at least 7 to 9 hours of sleep, because that will help your mind to be at rest. It will free you from cardiovascular diseases and anxiety levels. You need sleep. A lot of us have lost sleep during this season. So it's important for you to restructure your life. Find some family time, some social time that is created. Please, parents, I know this is hard for teenagers. You need to manage screen time. Cognitively speaking, screen time does not stimulate the brain. In fact, it increases levels of loneliness and levels of distress. So it's important for you to manage screen time, but also be intentional in your parenting. restore the place of being an authoritative parent that has a balance between the demands and the being compassionate and flexible, so that you also allow that to happen, but create boundaries. I think as Miss Ruth had said, it is important for children to know, when I enter the office, please give me time so that I'm able to finish what I'm doing, and then I'll come and attend to you. Separate issues, separate your parenting, separate your work life, separate your marriage life, so that you're not triangulating or putting kids into your conflicts, either in marriage or in your work or in your distress. Find ways as a parent to separate that, but create positive memories, as we have said, but also model emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence talks about, how do I know that I am not okay? And how can I manage my emotions? I'm feeling down. How can I manage my emotions so that I'm not pouring them on other people, so that I'm not taking it over or taking it, pouring it to my children and to everybody else? How can I resolve my own conflicts in a positive way and in a way that is more constructive? Becomes very, very important. But also, how can we be able to deal with other family conflicts? Because one of the greatest challenges we realize is that as we are parenting our own children, we are also taking care of our parents who are vulnerable and at that age. And a few of us could be living with those parents, or some of us have sent our kids to those parents, to live there. Or some of us are the parents or grandparents who have been left with these kids, and we have no idea what we are supposed to do. These children have no structure. They were just dropped with their clothes. They have no structure. Are they supposed to run around the whole day, and sleep the whole day? But providing a sense of structure will provide an opportunity for everybody to know what they are doing, when they are doing it, and therefore they can do it comfortably. Because that is what COVID has stolen from us, structure. When you wake up and you are not going anywhere, do you really make your bed? Do you shower right now, or do you shower later in the day? And that can be very, very confusing. The brain that is well organized and structured needs structure back.
Absolutely.
And for any developing brain, if structure lacks, then we are losing a lot, including emotional regulation, because everything is everywhere and all over the place. So it begins with us, then our parenting, then our other relationships, and even our work environment. At what time do you say, I won't check email? And sometimes it's hard for me to tell even my students that I don't pick calls after 7 and before 7, because I need to have a personal life. I need to have a personal space, even for my clients. This line is for doing this and not for you to call me, not for you. You can drop a message, you can drop an email. I'm going to attend to it, so that you're also creating boundaries for yourself, for personal health, but also for family time. Structure. I cannot overemphasize that. We have to create structure.
Structure that enables us to handle every compartment of our lives. And Ruth, I'll allow you to make a quick comment, just following through on that, on how parents can manage anxiety, especially over their children, because some of us have children who are about to be candidates. We're wondering, is my child still going to make it? How do we make sure we're not dumping these stresses? Just following through from what Marion was speaking to.
I will use my own example. I said I've already understood how to work from home. It wasn't by choice. A few years ago, I lost a job, which sent me home. I'm a teacher by profession. And shortly after that, our two children, because life changed for us, we were not able to take care of the school fees because now my income couldn't support. So our two children were sent home from school, which was a bad thing. But when they're sent home from school and I'm a teacher, I'm at home, I'm not working, I quickly understood what was going on. And we had to sit down and agree, my husband and I, and see, so the children are at home right now, what do we do? I can make use of my teaching profession and stay home with them. So somehow life just ended up sending me to homeschooling our children from a bad thing of losing a job, but it was a blessing in disguise. So I was able to stay home with the children, help them out. However, before I understood that, I had this big loss that had happened to me of the job. So I had my own mental stability to take care of. That was before the children were sent home from school. I had to now understand that every morning, I'm so used to 20 years of waking up every weekday to go to work, you know, make myself up and go to work. Now, suddenly I'm at home. So I'm also in shock. So what will I be doing? But the thing that I learned, and I pray that people can be able to learn right now, is to separate your job from your own personal life. So when I lost my job, it doesn't mean that Ruth is a failure. I think, and at that moment is I had to get counsel just to help me, you know, balance my mind, because I couldn't understand what was happening. I suddenly have, you know, like the 8 hours I used to spend at school, I'm at home. So I have cooked, I am sitting, I'm trying to understand how will I even organize my life. So I quickly ran for counsel. Marion said, look for counsel. It's really humbling at this moment when you're overwhelmed by your own emotions. Please look for somebody to talk to. I think in the past we have looked at counselors like people who are only speaking to mad people. No, I find counselors are people who allow themselves to listen to us. So when I found counsel, and I pray that as we get to navigate around this season, parents can see that is useful. Who are in your support system? You need to have people who can support you during this time. That I learned very fast. And then I also learned self-care. What does that mean for me? During that time, I learned that I can easily dump my stress on the children. It was inevitable because it's too much already. But I learned I can be able to take time off, go out and take walks. By the time I'm coming back, I am calm, because I realize apart from the children getting your stresses, even the spoons and the plates in the sink are suffering. You're already speaking volumes. So please be aware of those moments. Sometimes you can't run away, but get help. And then another thing that we're going to use is your family members, because they know what you're going through. Sometimes get your children away from you, send them to auntie so-and-so, and let them just give you time to unwind. I found that very useful. Another thing is exercising. I love Zumba. So I hooked myself with a Zumba club where I used to go every evening. By the time I come home, I'm easy and I can listen to the rest of the people. Finally, my spiritual part, you know, me, because you're not understanding, why did God allow me to lose a job? Now my children are at home. You begin to run away from what is happening and begin to hate God if you're not careful. But I pray for you that you'll be able to understand quickly that prayer will help you begin to understand what is happening around you. Speak to maybe your pastor, make use of the teachers who can help you handle the children. I think for me, that is what I would say. But finally, I just want to say something about social media. We're in so many social media groups right now, parenting. Some of them you enter there, the parenting things that you're seeing are not helping you. Please just make sure you're in the right forums, things that are going to help you at this time, because life as it is overwhelming. Thank you so much.
Powerful insights right there. Thank you very much, Ruth, for that. And I want to end my questions with this last question to you, Dr. Mukolwe. How can parents stay healthy and positive? And we've had that. You're in all these groups, and you know, it just sounds like so much doom and gloom. How can I stay healthy, positive, mentally, emotionally, physically, and as Ruth has spoken to, spiritually, so that I can be able to thrive as an individual, as a parent, and essentially even in the family unit, and bearing in mind that our family units are not are single. Some of us are single parents, some of us are in nuclear homes, some of us are in extended families. How can we stay healthy in all these facets of our lives?
If you'll allow me, let me cover that during my presentation, because there is this whole aspect of the ability to bounce back during a stressful situation. I'll be talking about resilience, and I will be able to weave the answer to that question during the presentation.
Thank you for that. And to my audience, We are now moving into the second part of our webinar. So stay tuned. What I want to continue requesting, continue typing your comments in the comment section and your questions. We have a Q&A session. But right now we want to hand over to Dr. Mukolwe, who's going to be talking to us on a topic called Parenting a Step at a Time. Over to you, Dr. Mukolwe.
Okay, I'm gonna do a screen sharing just now that will allow me to be able to connect with my audience with my slides. I hope that is coming through okay. Jerry, if you could tell me if it's coming through. Is my screen looking okay on your end?
Yes, I can see it.
Wonderful. And as you know, audience, Britam is with you every step of the way. And they love you so much. They are asking us to come and share some nuggets on parenting so that you can cope with the stressful situation on your hands. And the Britam believes in working with you one step at a time. And in today's talk, I think we have walked more than one step, Britam, but we're gonna walk one more step at looking at what does it look like to be resilient during this time of the COVID season. As I mentioned earlier, my wife and I have been married for the last 35 years, and we have 3 grown children. My wife and I are the founders of Raising Future Parents, where we rebuild families to strengthen nations, and that is very much needed during this COVID season. I work for the Navigators Africa as the Director for Family Life Ministry. And today I'm gonna be talking about building resilience in your children, and really more specifically about creating the environment that builds resilience. Some may be asking, what is resilience to begin with? In a very easy way to define it, it's the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties. And the COVID season does present some difficulties. And built within that capacity is a tough elasticity. Normally, toughness and elasticity don't go together, but we do need to be tough during this season, and we need to have the ability to bounce back. Resilient people go through challenges without allowing the challenges to go through them. In other words, they don't crumble. They learn from their mistakes and the mistakes of others, because sometimes what you go through is not because of your mistake, this COVID season being a case in point, and they're able to bounce back without crashing. Resilient people respect the power of memory. In other words, when you go through life, remember what you went through, and you use that memory to build yourself and to build others. You focus and you face the brutal facts of life, loss of job, repeating of class, the mistakes made by others. You look at your experiences, your sins, and even the blessings of your life. And you take all of that, you learn from it. And as you go through it, you repair your past, so that, as one of our panelists said, she lost her job, but she repaired that past and became a homeschool teacher, homemaking and teaching at the same time. Now, some of you are old enough to remember the days when cars had tubes. Remember tube tires? When you had a puncture with a tube tire, you were stranded because all the air came out and you couldn't move forward. You had to repair it before you move. But the tubeless tires came in, and a tubeless tire can have a thorn in it for days or weeks and will lose very little air. They are resilient, and you notice them going down and you go back and pump them. This is what we are talking about, tough elasticity. And can this be built in us? Can it be built in our children? The answer is yes. The only question is how. Friends, we were designed to be resilient. And resilient people can be afflicted in many ways without being crushed. They can be perplexed by many situations without despairing. They can be persecuted, but they don't feel forsaken. They can be struck down, but they are not necessarily destroyed. Although we are designed for resilience, our ability to bounce back is actually shaped by the home environment and also by the world. But the home environment is the first environment the child experiences before they're exposed to the world. And friends, you need to realize that a significant part of who we are, a part of what we do, and how we relate to others, a significant part of that is already formed in us by the time we get to age 10. The impressions that we pick up in life as we go along and the experiences that we go through determine what kind of person we turn out to be. It is not the only factor, but it's a very significant factor. And parents think very often about what they teach their children in the formal times. But did you know that even deaf children learn? They learn without hearing. They follow you around the house like a shadow. They do what you do. Though they are deaf and can't speak, they can imitate what they see. And the impressions that are picked up by children in the growing up years, these impressions are treated as facts unless they go through circumstances where they're allowed to or forced to scrutinize these impressions. So for example, kids think parents are always gone, and then COVID happens and parents are always at home. So now they've been forced to think differently. Otherwise, they will, whatever they're shaped with in their younger years is what remains with them. And parents have to realize that when we train up our children in the way they should go, when they grow older, they will not depart from it. And this training of children, as I mentioned earlier on, is not simply a proactive training where we are formally teaching them. It is also what they see us doing. Think about how a child learns to speak. You don't teach them every word. They follow you around and pick up the conversations. And when they begin to speak, you're amazed at how much vocabulary they have learned over a short time. And so in the training of our children, there is more to it than the formal training. The formal training is important and critical. And some of the formal training they receive in school, my question is this: when schools resume, what kind of person will your child be in character to be able to cope with a missed school? So apart from training the children, we need to train ourselves to be patient, to be forgiving, to be resilient, and to be godly. And in setting that example for our children, we give them something to emulate. Parenting is not so much what you tell your children, it's who you are before the children and giving them a chance to imitate you. And you have to ask yourself this question: if my children turned out exactly like me, would I be proud or would I be ashamed? I hope many of you would be proud and not ashamed. In talking about resilience during this time of COVID-19, I want you to compare your child for a moment to a ball. You see, balls were designed to bounce. Basketballs. If a basketball is not bouncing, what use is it? But sometimes balls don't bounce, not because they are defective. It is simply because they don't have air. A basketball that is flat is not a faulty basketball. It's not defective. All it needs is air. And when parents are observing their children acting like flat balls, like balls that have no air in them, parents should be careful not to discard their children, but to realize this child needs a bit of help. Just like that ball needs to be pumped up, perhaps your child needs to be pumped up. Now, ordinarily, when the ball is pumped, it should bounce. But often you find that balls have holes. So no matter how much pumping you do, the air keeps leaking out and the ball will not bounce, not for long anyway. So we need to identify, so to speak, the holes in our children's lives. Who creates them? Notice I said who creates them, not what creates them. Who creates those holes and who can seal them? And very often the parent can be part of that solution. But sometimes the ball is full of air and bouncy, but it's not bouncing. What is the problem? Could it be that the ball is wet? Could the environment in which the ball is supposed to bounce not allowing it to bounce? This environment at the moment is created in the home. Yes, there's external pressure, but can parents work on this environment and make it possible for their children to bounce? Can the wet ball be dried without burning it? We're going to look at two, so to speak, aspects of air that need to be pumped into this child. Remember, we are taking the analogy of your child being a ball designed to bounce, but it's not bouncing, and the parent needing to pump this child with air. We're going to look at two aspects that can be pumped up. One is hope, the other one is love. Hope, anticipation, looking to the future with hope, optimism, that needs to be restored in your children. And then love, you could use the word affection as a synonym for that. Now, parents, when hope is deferred, the heart becomes sick. And the COVID season has given us plenty of opportunity for hope to be deferred. Hope to go to the next class at the beginning of the year. Hope to graduate from college. Hope to finish paying that mortgage, and then there's a salary cut. And audience, please send me some charts. What other hope have you had that's been deferred? And how are you coping with it? Hope to not return to school because the teenager is pregnant. Hope deferred makes the heart sick. So what does it look like? What does a sick heart look like? It's irritable. It's moody. It's got outbursts of anger, anger towards self, anger towards others, anger towards God, anger towards government. And the parent is suffering as well as the child in that home. But the parent is the older and supposed to be the wiser one. So they have to man up. Parents need to realize that resilient people face life's challenges, and the life's challenges are supposed to produce perseverance. Going back on one of our panelists again, she went through challenges of loss of job. She persevered, she built her character. When character is built, it brings hope. She became a school teacher, which is her own training in the home, and is reaping a benefit from educating her own children, which she could not reap. Yes, there is loss of income, but there's a new joy that has emerged. And all of us need to look at the life's challenges and ask ourselves, can we go through these challenges, persevere through them, build our character, have hope, and allow that hope to bounce us back? And I'll be sharing through some very specific things that we can do about it. The second amount of air or type of air we need to pump into these children is love. They need to hear it said. They need to see it demonstrated. They need to observe it during testing times. And as our other speakers have said, when people are stressed, they take it out on each other. They need to see you as their father being patient with their mother, even though you're stressed. They need to see you in charge of the home with less finances without fighting with them all the time. So when we are in distress, the normal thing is to focus on our distress. But what we need to learn to do, this is what resilient people do, you focus on the distress of others. In other words, distressed parents focus on the challenges of their children. Distressed husbands focus on the challenge of the distressed wife. When we address the challenges of others, instead of having a pity party towards ourselves, our own gloom slowly but surely begins to turn into noonday. Parents, the average man is an angry man. The average Kenyan man is a very angry man. The average woman is a stressed woman. The anger and stress is waiting for an opportunity to express itself, and COVID has given us that opportunity. Today, nearly 5,000 children will be born in Kenya, 80% of them into dysfunctional homes. The relationship between most husbands and most wives is toxic. Some couples live in competition with one another. They work as if they're on different teams. Individuals come into marriage wounded. Most of them receive further wounding in their marriages. Very, very few find healing. Children are born in these toxic homes. Now, some single parents are thinking, what about me? Yes, what about me? The single parent has a multitude of challenges. They are the breadwinner of that home. And sometimes they envy the home where there are both parents who help each other, but then they observe both parents in the other home and they are fighting one another. So the single parent home is also struggling. Mom comes home and he's exhausted. Couples are competing with one another with respect with how much money is going to come in. And woe to the family where one couple has lost a job and the other one is not compassionate. Sometimes couples are comparing themselves to the people next door without realizing how the other people raise their money. And children have been pushed to become performance machines. Even in schools, performance seems to be everything. You find a school where the stealing of exams before the Matiang'i era was the norm. You find that even the CRE teacher is stealing the exam for their children. And by so doing, they place a higher value on performance and they nullify all the character traits they taught those children in the last 4 years. So when we are stressed, we should focus on relationships and not just performance. We need to remember that although we may have good intentions, nobody experiences our intentions. The words of our lips are the instruments of our leadership. And in this particular case, the leadership of the family. We can build or destroy our children and our spouses by the words we speak. In this COVID season, we must be very guarded in the way we present ourselves. Some people are finding the home is not running efficiently. Why? Because house help is gone. Parents, remember, when it comes to the office, efficiency is topmost. When it comes to the home, relationships are topmost. Whereas mediocrity is not permissible, relationships come first, then efficiency second within the home. If you reverse that order, you know what will happen? You will get things done, but you will lose your children. So I'm going to share with you a couple of ways to create safe environments within the home. I was going to share 4 different ways, but just given the time, we'll just focus on 2 or 3 of them. The first way to do it is, so I'm going the wrong way with my slides. The first way to do it is to respect the walls that are formed within the home when there is a challenge. The second way is to honor one another. The third is to suspend judgment. And the fourth is to value differences. Because of the time factor, I'm just going to share on the last 2 and then just open it up for questions because I'm very much aware that time is gone. So I'm going to go and look at that whole area of suspending judgment. Now, when we express genuine interest in what people are doing, rather than judging them, relationships have a better chance to survive. During this COVID season, because of the pressure we are going through, internal pressure as well as external pressure, it is very easy to be critical of everything that's going around. Friends, it is not always necessary to criticize. Even though something can be improved, it is not always necessary to take the attacking mode in improving it. When we judge people, they feel hurt, they feel attacked, and they feel alone. So when people feel judged, they close up, and they may in fact fight back in self-defense. They fight the attacker, they fight the person judging them. In this particular case, a family member. And as you heard from our psychologist, fights and other mental challenges are escalating within the family. So let me encourage you as a parent or one who's watching over children, suspend judgment first on yourself and on the others. And instead of judging, express real interest in what is going on in the life of the other person. Let me give you some examples. A child is sleeping all the time. And the normal judgment approach is that you are lazy. Well, that may be true. They may be lazy, but suspend judgment and find out, why are they sleeping all the time? Are they depressed? Are they in fact sleeping, or are they just covering themselves with a blanket and watching pornography on their cell phone? So by suspending judgment, it allows you to probe the situation. The child is angry, a child is mean, a child is not getting their chores done. The normal Kenyan way is to descend upon these children and make them do what they need to do. Whereas things must be done, I made a statement earlier on, get the chores done, but retain the relationship. Don't delegate relationships to others. You are, as the parent, the stabilizing factor that the child needs because their world has crashed. Remember, resolve the issues, retain the relationship to rebuild resilience. Don't just resolve the issue. Think before you begin to speak. Think of, what do I want at the end of this situation? Resolving an issue is very easy. Retaining a relationship is harder. So the approach that you take in resolving the issue must contain within it the retention of relationship to be able to rebuild resiliency. Get to know what the child is going through. Express compassion or empathy. The child will begin to open up. Compassion and understanding create a tremendous amount of safety. Refuse to judge the motive of others and instead try to understand why they are doing what they are doing. Here is a phrase worth remembering. Find out the need behind the deed. Why is my child moody all the time? What is the need behind the deed? Maybe you're taking it easy. Going back to class 8 may be an easy matter for you. You're saying, listen, it affects everybody, but your child is crushed. Don't tell him get over it, because they don't know how to get over it. Create an environment that helps them to get over it, a non-judgmental environment. You see, judgment results in defensiveness and closes down relationships. But if you become curious with what's going on, curiosity results in openness and safety, and it gives life to relationships. So listen to one another. Ask good questions. Get to know not just what they are saying, but how they are feeling. Now, men, are you hearing this? It's not just women who feel. Men feel too. And train yourself to know how your children are feeling. You know, in a few years, your children will be grown and they will leave home. Some of you have got very comfortable homes. A child may forget the comfort of that home, may forget the school you took them to, but they will never forget how you made them feel. You see, judgment renders a verdict and concludes a relationship. But curiosity says, I don't know enough to make judgment. And you are curious and you leave that door open. You are open for more discovery. And that is what the environment children need to be able to bounce back. Remember, parents, A lifetime is not long enough for you to truly know the beauty of your children. Besides, these kids will be gone when they reach their late teens. And when they are gone to college, they are gone. Yes, they'll come back home, but they are gone. My kids are gone. I have to face that reality. I cannot go back and raise them again. So take full advantage of the prolonged time that you have with them to really get to know them, to be curious about why they do what they do, to suspend judgment, and to pump in the air of love and the air of hope. During this COVID season, get close to your children. Suspend judgment, show affection. When a child is harassed by life, they need to come back to a safe environment. And suspending judgment will add air to the ball. Remember, the ball is your child, and restore their bounds. The second and last thing I'll share is value differences, and I'll be very brief on this. When we value our differences, rather than making the differences the focus of our conflict, we create a safe environment. When two people are in conflict with one another, usually they point to their differences as the source of conflict. But in fact, differences can be a blessing if we know how to deal with them and capitalize on them. Now listen carefully, parents. Do not compare children to one another, thereby introducing sibling rivalry. In a majority of the times, when there is sibling rivalry, it is because one child perceives that the other is being favored by the parents. Parents are normally the ones who introduce it without realizing it. They don't intend to, but they do. So let me give you a couple of examples and just close right here. If one child during this COVID season, you discover this child is very good at doing the chores in the house. They are very good at keeping a clean house. They are very good at cooking meals. But you're the kind of parent who says, what will keeping house clean do for you in the future? Are you training to become a professional house help? That's not a very useful statement. There is another way to look at it. Perhaps this child should pass by and hear you talking to their sibling and saying, I think Alfred will make a wonderful manager of a big hotel. Look at how at age 13, he keeps the house really clean and cooks good meals. Perhaps he'll make a wonderful manager. That change in mindset, and Alfred is passing by and he hears you talking to his bigger sister or to your wife or to your husband, talking wonderful things about his future that have been exposed by what you've seen during this COVID season. It might give him the courage to come and say, Dad, I've actually been thinking about becoming a hotel manager. But if your mind is locked into thinking that although Alfred is good with housekeeping and is bad at math, he will not go anywhere, you will destroy that child. So before you judge, look at the two children. The one who does math, is he better than the one who does the chores very well? It's the wrong question to ask. They are both wonderful children, and given the opportunities, they have areas where they can thrive. The parent gives that opportunity. The parent gives a dry surface so that the ball that has been already received the air can bounce. So let me urge you as parents to be the change agents in your relationships and create a safe environment in the home where your children can return to and bounce again. As I mentioned earlier, resources are available. One of our best-selling books called Raising Future Parents is available to you, and the Britam team will let you know how you can get hold of this. Thank you very much.
Dr. Mukolwe, I think looking at the comments coming through, I think people are ready to spend another 2-3 hours just going through the excellent insights that you are sharing. A lot of food for thought. Even for me as a parent, I'm thinking, what have I been doing? Have I been encouraging them? Have I been growing them? And I like the analogy, they're like a ball. Yeah, so at the end of the day, that how high they bounce, I have an influence on that. I have an influence based on how well I support my child with the words I'm saying to them. And I loved one particular aspect that you mentioned, that suspend criticism. Suspend criticism. How powerful is that? How powerful is that? And it's amazing looking through the comments. And I have a feeling we'll end up repeating this or going through this session, another session in a similar way, because looking at the comments, a lot of learning for all of us who are tuned in this morning. Now, I want to go to a few of the questions that have come through, and I'll allow Dr. Mukolwe, you can tell us, perhaps, I am dealing with my teenager. They are on phone a lot. And there's a lot of questions on phones and teenagers or children who are just spending time on phone. How can I manage that? Or how can I control that? Okay. Bearing in mind all the aspects you've mentioned.
Okay. There's two ways I'd like to respond to that. Think of before 2007. You see, smartphones have only been in existence for the last 13 years, and you forget that life worked before then. Mm-hmm. Think of pre-2007, when there were cell phones, yes, but not smartphones, so social media was not a big deal. Think of parents, homes where children would wake up in the morning and disappear into the neighborhood to play, and parents were unconcerned about that. That was a dangerous situation. Children were raising themselves and being influenced primarily by peers. Now, what's happened is that the entire world has become your neighbor. And the peers are not just next door, they are in the media. So that child is spending all the time on the phone trying to connect with the world. And just like the parent who let his child run out in the morning in the olden days and be unconcerned about where that child went until they came back in the evening, just like that was irresponsible parenting, even so, allowing your child on the phone the whole time is also irresponsible. And the children need to be taught that there is a time for everything. And one of the reasons why kids are on the phone all the time is because they don't have alternatives of what to do with their time. And parents need to create time to play with their children. Play games like chess. Perhaps your 12-year-old knows how to play chess and you don't know. Let them teach you. Play Scrabble and work out their vocabulary. Watch movies together, do things together. For the younger children especially, their preferred playmate is the parent. When the parent is not there, they play with siblings. When they are not there, they'll go to the media. But as long as we give them alternatives of how to spend the time, read together, do chores together, play together, work together, run errands together, you'll minimize that time. And in doing those things together, ask questions that help you to know your children without necessarily interrogating them. Children don't feel very nicely when they're being interrogated.
Okay, and just a follow-up question. I'm seeing some questions on respecting the wall. The first principle you mentioned on respecting the wall. Could you just spend just a minute or so expounding a bit more on how we can respect the wall?
I skipped it because of time, but if you give me 5 minutes, I can actually work on it. Would you like me to do that? Respecting the wall is really important in making sure that a child feels affirmed. Now, children build walls when they are feeling afraid, okay? They build them when they are feeling afraid, and they build walls so as to hide behind the wall. So they build it when they feel threatened. And our natural tendency is to knock down that wall and find out, why are you sleeping so much? And when we knock down that wall, the child perceives the parent to be dangerous. What does a wall look like? Short replies to the gloomy face, an irritable child, impatient, they are defensive, They are accusing each other with their siblings and parents. Sometimes parents are talking to each other through texts. Some single parents have been labeled Mkali Sana. When you're coming home, the tsunami is coming home. You've been labeled. So when you see a child not talking to you, realize they're afraid. And no matter how much you bombard them, the more you bombard them, the more they run away from you. So what you need to do is to create a safe environment on your end by respecting that wall. And I'll tell you exactly how to do that. When you respect the wall, the person who put it up will bring it down. The realization that whoever puts up the wall is the only one who can bring it down. Nobody else can bring it down. If you try to break it by shouting or screaming, the child feels completely defenseless. So how do you bring down that wall? The first thing you need to do is to let the person who is hiding behind the wall, let them know that you're aware that they're afraid. How do you let them know that? I put my arm around my child and say, you're upset with mommy, aren't you? You're upset with dad, aren't you? And they may just nod their head. Is it what I said yesterday? They nod their head. Was I a bit harsh? They nod their head. They say, okay, I understand why you're not talking. Let them know that you understand. Let them know that you're aware that only they can bring down that wall. Your job is to create a safe environment. And as the parent in the house, whether single or married, the children need to know that you will protect them. You see, sometimes the wall is up against you, but you are not the problem. The child is being bullied on the internet. The child is being bullied by a sibling. Sometimes, you see, let's say you've got a 14-year-old who has put up a wall against you. And the 7-year-old has been coming to you complaining that the 14-year-old is harassing them. And you have naturally taken the side of the younger child. Where the older child puts up a wall against you because you have not bothered to find out what happened. And now when you create a safe environment by reaching out to that child and finding out, is so-and-so being mean to you? Ask them questions that allow them to speak. When the person feels safe, they begin to bring down that wall and to share, Mom, do you know you always take the side of Janet being the younger child, you always take her side and you never bother to find out who the real mean person is. So suspend judgment, respect the wall, ensure that the child knows that when they bring down the wall, they are safe. Perhaps the child has broken a glass and they're afraid to say so. And you come home and the glass is broken and you begin to scream, who broke this glass? Is it you? Is it you? Relax. No amount of screaming will unbreak the glass. So just relax and find out with a neutral question, what happened to the glass? When the question is neutral, it respects the wall of fear and the kids can come up and say, Mom, I was washing the glass and it slipped out of my hands. Does that make sense?
It does, it does. Make them feel safe because at the end of the day, whoever puts the wall up is the only one
who can bring down.
Is the only one who can bring it down. Thank you for that response. I have a question for you, Ruth, that's coming through from our audience on anger management in teenagers. It looks like teenagers being home is really a big issue. How can I handle anger better with my children? And bearing in mind that I need to respect their wall as well. So how can I handle anger with my teenagers? Ruth? Okay, as we have Ruth come on back, I want to come back to you, Marion. Ruth, you please proceed.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, I was trying to unmute myself and it was taking a little long. I'm so sorry. I think we've learned a lot from Dr. Mkolo. What he doesn't know that I have been a student of his for many years, since 2005. I have gone everywhere he has trained. I have bought those books. I have read. I have humbled myself. And I'm so grateful that that has happened. One thing that I would say about anger management for the child, the teenager, for me, it's communication. They're communicating something. So am I listening? Am I watching? Am I trying to understand? And what I've also discovered about this teenager, they have strengths and weaknesses. And just like Dr. Mukolo has said, I can't major on those weaknesses really because I'm not making them a better person. So I have learned how to take the positives about them and then find out. Because once I begin to work on the positive, at that point, then I come in and say, I realized you're throwing tantrums. I realized this is what is happening, what is going on. And what I'm learning, this child is also trying to transition from a certain age group to a new one. So they need help. So sometimes they pretend like they know how to run around their lives, but they don't. Also, being on social media a lot, they're learning from their peers. So I'm able to help. So I create moments like those where I'm humble enough to listen to what is going on. And at that point, when I'm trying to help the anger management, I'm hearing not what I'm seeing the mouth saying behind. This child is saying something. They're frustrated about ABCD. So at that point, I'm able to help. One thing that I want to also say about the teenager, I have found them very useful. This particular one who I am living with here has helped me as I'm setting up the Zoom, as I'm doing something like that. So as I realize as I'm getting also irritated, they're also getting irritated. So one of us has to calm down. So I have taught her, when you see mom going up, please you calm down. So we have an agreement and it's really helping me. I'm still learning. And I guess another day, Dr. Mutweri would tell us how to deal with that. But don't ignore that. The child is saying something. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for that response, Ruth. Marion, I know we are pressed for time, but I see a question that keeps coming up, and I'm seeing it quite a bit on the aspect of separation, divorce, or really just having difficulty as a couple, and still I want to be a good parent during this period. How can I do that when we are separated, divorced, or just are really struggling right now as a couple?
I think, Dr. Mukolo, you have many students. I also did my first parenting for our first to the third child with you through the Nairobi Chapel, so appreciate your work. And I think one of the things we need to know is that sometimes marriage doesn't work because we get married for the wrong reasons, and the circumstances under which we got into the relationship do not work. And one of the statements I disagree with many times is that east to west home is best. Home is not sometimes the best place because that environment Dr. Mukolo has talked about that is toxic and competitive is not very helpful, and it creates a dysfunctional environment for children to grow up in. It's a very sad situation, but also a clear place of maturity where couples realize that we are not doing well together. And therefore, should you get there, it is important to do what we are calling conscious uncoupling. Conscious uncoupling is where we engage in disentangling ourselves from one another in a healthy and positive way. That I know I may have, some aspects where I'm mad and disappointed with you, but then I need to know that this has come to an end, and therefore I can walk out of it without creating drama, whether it is in the home or in the court, and I can do it in an amicable way. And that calls for us to handle our own emotional distress, because a separation or a divorce falls in between a loss and a traumatic event. So working through the loss, what have I lost? I have lost years. I have lost predictability. I have lost future dreams and hopes of being present with my children and my spouse. And that is the end. But then it's traumatic, because it is sudden, and the circumstances. There are many circumstances that get us there, ranging from just unwillingness to continue the relationship to infidelity and many other things that could get us there, or even health issues and all that. So being at that place where you're intentional, know that you need help as an individual, but you also need help on being healthy parents to the children that you have. And it's important for everybody to know that the courts have been so good through COVID, making very interesting judgments where co-parenting is becoming a very important thing. So there are several ways: seek counseling, seek support and social support from your family, from your friends. And family and friends, let's be open and supportive to people, because they are first individuals before they are an entity. And therefore, when the entity doesn't work, the individual is not bad. And it's important for us to embrace people and to embrace one another. Let's not fight using our children. We can't make children choose who is who. And the place of competition and favoritism, being the good father, the good mother, is sometimes a card that can be played. Let's not switch off phones and be unkind. If amicable agreement does not work, there is an offer today called mediation, which is a very good way where we can find agreement over how to bring up our children together. And that introduces another brand of family called the blended family, because a lot of us continue into other relationships. How can you be a conscious blended parent, a stepfather, a stepmother who knows that children, regardless of who gave birth to them, are worth of love and generating hope, as we have learned. You can't refuse to engage and support a child because they are not your flesh and blood. That's being inhuman and unkind and unfair, and bringing another generation or generations to come that are embittered and therefore become toxic, even as citizens of this country. So it is important for us to do conscious uncoupling, seek help, seek counseling, deal with the loss, deal with the trauma, and find ways of working to support the growth of that child to be well.
To be well. To be well. And it's true, mom and dad will always be mom and dad. And for children, they don't know different. And then it's true. They shouldn't be in the middle of the fight. But at the end of the day, we've spoken a lot about separating the issues, having a support system that makes it possible for you to support this child. Dr. Mukolo, I want to come back to you as we get towards the end. We have spoken a lot about parents who are at home with the children, but there are also parents who are not at home with the children and are parenting from a distance, because perhaps because of work, they have to be away. How can they continue to support their children so that at least they continue to grow them up responsibly?
Jerry, I don't know if you like this answer. No substitute for the presence of the parent. Let me mention that work can take us away. Sickness can take us away. When whatever has taken us away is inevitable, then it is inevitable. But work is not inevitable. You see, career is supposed to serve us. When career results in the separation of my family, it is no longer serving me. I need to change it. And once we elevate parenting to the level of important and urgent, other things fall into place. But if we elevate career to important and urgent, and then COVID happens, where career is affected, our own family becomes strangers to us. So I'm not going to paint a picture of how to do it well when you're not there. I'm going rather to encourage people to be there. I don't know how you like that answer, Jerry.
No, I guess it is what it is. I'm seeing a follow-up question on what if I'm bringing up my children in a war-torn country?
Well, hypothetical, and we can deal with it. And we can deal with hypothetical situations in other countries. And that's what I meant by some things are inevitable. If there's war going on here, I'm quite happy to ship off my children to my cousin in the UK, hypothetically, and deal with the war here and eventually sneak out. That's an inevitable situation. But most of what we have right now can be controlled. And if my kids were to be away, just like my kids are away right now, but they're not kids anymore. The youngest is 22. And we raise them so they can live successfully away from us. Then do the best we can using the media available to continue keeping in touch with them. Having said that, there is a marked difference between sustaining authority over your children and becoming an influence on your children. And some parents don't know the difference. And they have sustained authority throughout the lives of those children. And in the process, they have lost influence. So what we need to do is to realize that the authority graph starts up very high and comes down with time.
Right. Yeah.
The influence graph begins slow, but goes up with time. And grown-ups in their 20s and 30s and 40s are always seeking the help of someone in a particular area. If we have parented well, they will seek our help. If we have not, they will go to strangers because the relationship is not there for them to come back to us. And so when you've got long-distance parenting, if you can change that situation, change it and be with your family. If it's a war situation, do the best you can on media and keep going. But then entrust your children to someone who can raise them well, preferably their grandparents. They're the next best set of people if they're available.
Wow, thank you for that. And I don't know, this last question, Dr. Mukolo, and I'm not sure I already can feel, I'm not sure whether some of us will like the answer. Can I instill discipline without being tough?
No, you have to be tough, but you have to be loving. It's like having boxing, yes, but have some gloves on that hand, so that while the child will feel the impact of the boxing, there is still an insulation. So we need to be firm but loving. The firmness is mandatory, especially when you're working with strong-willed children. They need boundaries. And if you don't give them firm boundaries, they'll create their own. And that becomes a source of unnecessary conflict in the home because the parent never led the way. So there's a toughness, but it needs a loving cushion around it.
Okay. Wow. Thank you. I mean, thank you so much. I mean, we are well past the hour, but it was hard to stop all the questions coming and all the excellent insights that we were sharing. I want to give each of my panelists a minute to give us a parting shot. And I want to start with you, Marion. Please give us your parting shot to our audience, even as we prepare to wind up. Marion?
Okay, thank you. I think we've said a lot of things, but for me, the parting shot is this. We need to learn to accept the seasons that we find ourselves in. When we fight too much, we actually waste our energy on fighting and resisting where we are at. And finally is school and learning, academic learning is not going on, but real life, true learning is happening. What are we doing to teach our children how to be self-controlled, how to be emotionally mature in learning to cope with situations, how to learn a key thing that our society is lacking today, delayed gratification. We don't know how to wait for good things to come our way. We want everything now, 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 now. But can we learn how to have delayed gratification? 3, can we invest in family? Family is the backbone of life, the backbone of any growing society. We have so many wounded people walking around with wrong perspectives of life. One of the greatest challenges when we grow old, where do we go back to? And that's why people are dying quickly, because you come home to a family you ran away from because of a career pursuit. They don't know you. They learned how to live without you. Your spouse learned how to live without you. Therefore, they have a life of their own. And if you go up country, they joined a chama, they are part of a movement, they are doing something, and you walk in and you're asking, Mama Nyagodie, where are you going? And she's wondering, who are you? Where have you been? Because, and she bonded or he bonded with the kids. and the kids are wondering, you have visited them, when can you leave? Because we have places to go and people to meet. But if we build relationships now, then we invest in a big way that will grow us and that will help us to be healthy. I wish you all well during this season.
And thank you so much, Marion, for that. Invest in relationships. And I think there's no better opportunity that has been presented to us by COVID, that for a moment, in fact, I've been saying, for a minute there, God said, pause. He said, pause the rat race, pause everything, take a moment and reflect on what really matters. Ruth, please give us your parting shot.
Maybe before I end, I just don't want to forget about saying this. I work a lot with children in children's homes, sometimes street children, and conversations that I listened from them, what sent them maybe to the streets, or what they are going with, what is going on in their lives, how they disconnected with family, is because parents could not understand, could not listen. So please, I just want parents to take time and ask themselves, what kind of a child am I raising? Because this child that you're raising now is the future leader that we're going to have in the community. It's the future husband, future sister, brother, parent. So you're raising them now. So please, I appreciate you so much and I celebrate you for coming on board to learn, put into practice all that we have had. There's so much, but you can sit down and God is going to help you to put them in order. What is for now, what is for later. So you are superb parents. Well done and keep it up. But remember the child's world. Don't get out. Number two, I want to celebrate Britam, because some of the things that the parents have learned today are things that I, Ruth Wangwe, have paid a price, a cost to go and listen. And here you've called us for this. I celebrate you too, Britam. Thank you very much. Parents, I want to urge us, there is an adjustment to do. Please don't take too long. Adjust quickly and begin to move into what people are calling the new norm. It's not gonna be the same again, and especially now that you have learned new stuff. Finally, there is help. So don't be stressed out there, sitting back, struggling on your own. Call for help. God bless you all.
Wow, thank you for that. I mean, the child's world, call for help, a lot of learnings from there. And thank you so much, Ruth, for the work you're doing and even making time to be here this morning just to impart parents with such powerful insights on parenting. And last but not least, Dr. Mukolwe, please share your parting shot.
Let me say that you can choose when to marry. You can choose who to marry. You can choose how many children to have. You can even choose when to have them. But once you have them, you cannot choose when to raise them. And if you don't raise them, they will still grow, but you may not like what you get. So choose to raise your children. Use the COVID season, the difficulty of the COVID season, to help you to know your children and to learn how to raise them. The COVID season will reveal cracks in our character. Get help, and God bless you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mukolo. I could still see so many students, past students and current students of yours in the comments in the parenting sessions, and really grateful for your time and making time to be here this morning to speak to us. I mean, 2 hours of exceptional learning. And I'm particularly encouraged because most of the time when you have conversations on parenting, it's mostly a ladies' affair, but I'm looking at the attendees today. I can see so many fathers, so many gentlemen who made time. That is amazing. And we celebrate each and every one of you who was deliberate about coming in today. Now, for everyone who's asking about the recording, please go to the Britam YouTube page. It's under Britam Group, and subscribe. The video is there right from start to end. Every single thing we've covered. My suggestion is listen to this repeatedly. I mean, we shared so many insights. I'm still going through my notes, just trying to catch up on everything we've discussed. Listen to it with a spouse, listen to it with a friend, share with your groups, but make sure that we grow and we learn together, because at the end of the day, we are all learning. Now, for me, I want to end this by saying that parenting is a lifelong journey. and extremely important. And from what Dr. Mukolo has said, you don't get to choose about when you're ready to raise them. When they're here, and here it is. It's time to go on. Every parent, and I'd like to believe every parent wants to be a good parent. Every parent wants to be a role model for their children. But effective parenting is not easy. It is not easy. I keep saying they come, but they don't come with a manual. It is a journey of continuous learning and growing together with your child. Whether you're a single parent, whatever kind of family you are, it is going to be continuous learning. It is going to be an opportunity for you to grow together. I keep saying every time my child has a birthday, I'm not just celebrating them, I'm celebrating me, for one more year, where I also learned with them as we were growing into an extra year. And our hope is that this session has equipped you a bit better to do a better job as a parent, or to improve in various areas where you can improve. Please comment in the sections on other topics you'd like to hear. Would you want to hear more from this panel? We will be having, this is a series of 4 webinars around education planning with Britam. And we are going to continue with these conversations around equipping you as parents. And I want to celebrate our many customers who are in the audience today. You have honored us by choosing Britam as a financial services partner. Today, every year we pay about 3 billion in education type payouts to be able to support children at different levels of schooling because of your trust in us. And this is our way of saying that we understand the unique circumstances that you're in, and we as a partner want to be able to make this journey easier for you. So thank you so much for making time. Thank you for all the audience who have listened in. And I want to pass on a heartfelt appreciation to my panel, who have been phenomenal. Thank you for making time and being here and imparting on us such great advice to all of us. And to all of you, thank you very much. And we wish you a great Friday, a great weekend ahead, and God's blessings. Look out for communication on the Britam platforms for the next webinar as we go on through this series. Thank you and God bless.
Well done, Jerry.